What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the opinionated hippie, and today I'd like to talk about the latest Grateful Dead release, Duke 78. Um, Recently, the Dead announced, and they also released another box set that focused on just like a month or like a short run of shows, or they do these things. Well, they'll release 5 or 6 shows at a time under like some banner. And in this instance, it was the banner of Friends of the Devil, 1978, which had 8 shows, 19 CDs. And usually, when they drop these releases, they'll release by itself one show from the box. So for this case, the one show they released was Duke 78, April 12th, 1978. And that's a show that's in circulation. There's a pretty good soundboard of this show in circulation. And I never would have been one that thought this show would be released. It has that typical sort of 78, I don't know if malaise is the right word, but it's like solid playing. The band sounds good. There's solos throughout and moments throughout that are pretty solid. It's not a bad listen by any stretch of the imagination. And if you like the set list, they're doing things well. We do have a couple like audio problems where it sounds like a microphone's not working or something, but that's not on the Dead, obviously. And usually, and this is one of those shows where, like, yeah, it's not a bad listen, but I'm like, why this one? I've yet to listen to the other shows in this box set, so I don't know what the quality of those are, though they are April 78 shows. But I was really excited to get into this because I thought there has to be a reason. There has to be something I've just overlooked all these years. This isn't a show I've ever gone back and revisited. So I'm like, let's see what's on here. 3 discs, complete show. Clocks in at just under 3 hours. The entirety of disc 1 is the first set. And I would say it's a Bobby first set. I think all of the Bobby songs are bringing some pretty high energy. Even almost as if Bob's in front of the stage, just urging the band to like up it whenever he's like leading the song. And Jerry, other than maybe the opening track and Loser, which is fantastic, definitely seems to be going down a more like chill, atmospheric, moody vibe. You'll know when I get through the songs. Not a bad first set. I like the song choices, except for maybe one. I think the performances are pretty good, but I can't say there's anything that really jumps out at me. Jackstraw opener, awesome opener. I come from an era of my live experience when Jackstraw was pretty much only a set opener. Fantastic choice. I think the way it eases us into it, and we get that sort of second half kind of jam, if you want to call it that, into the awesome, Jack Straw cut his buddy down. That whole thing. Great way to start off a show. Energy on here is fantastic. Though we do have the microphone problems early, but it does just allow them to like vamp a little more, so it kind of works. I'm assuming it's a microphone problem. Then we get a Dire Wolf, which is not bad. Not one of my favorite songs. That's my one complaint. We get I think it's a 12 beat, Beat It On Down the Line, if I'm not mistaken. Dun, 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 dun. And this, I think it's a 12 beat intro. And then we get the mood for Jerry for the rest of the set. Peggy O. Beautiful Peggy O. I love Peggy O's from this era. They're almost like, let's do as little as possible to create the atmosphere of this song because the storytelling in the lyrics is so absolutely perfect. Always like hearing a Peggy O. Mama Tried into Mexicali Blues. This is one where Bob's just like, hey man, bring the energy. Like the second half of Mama Tried is just like, hey man, this is a rock song. And then Mexicali Blues is just fun. We get a little Funicula tuning exploration jam, which kind of almost makes you feel like Jerry's going to do something a little bit special, a little more upbeat. But then he comes in with the Road Jimmy. Pretty good Road Jimmy. Again, we're riding that same energy that a Peggy Ho has, though, where it's just like, let's let the song just carry us. We don't need to do the work. Let's vibe. It's a good vibe, good ending. Nice Road Jimmy. New Minglewood Blues, bringing the energy. And then we get for me, is the highlight of the first set. We get an awesome Loser. Jerry's really letting that guitar solo just kind of like he's not ready ever to wrap it up. And that almost feels like, I always think like the vocal performance in Loser can go a lot of different ways. Jerry can be defiant. I'm not a loser. He can be like sort of resigned to the fact that this is just his life. He can be accepting but not resigned, meaning I know that's where I am, but I'm going to change it. He can be angry. This is one of those that almost is riding that hopeful defiance. Like I'm going to just keep trying. I'm going to just, this is my life. I'm going to win that big hand one of these days. Things are going to turn around. And the sort of guitar solo energy, which is aggressive, but not too aggressive, not like angry aggressive, just like persistent aggressive, carries along that message also. Fantastic Loser. Highlight of the set, I would argue. And then Bob closes it out with a Lazy Night Lightning Supplication, which sounds amazing. The Supplication jam is nice and stretched out. They're really feeling it. Doesn't have really too like frenetic, crazy peaks to it, but it's got really good kind of let's stretch out energy. Solid first set. Like I really, really, really enjoyed listening to it. And I do think the Loser might be like, let's mark this date down as one of the better Losers I've heard. But yeah, solid first set, but nothing that I think really warrants this being the show that they release out of the 878. Though again, like I said, I haven't listened to the other 7 at least recently, probably within the last 10 years if they're available on tape, and I haven't really looked if they are. Set 2, discs 2, we get really short because they keep the continuity of the second half of this set together. So only get 3 songs plus the encore, but it works because you need that sort of block in the middle of the second set to stay together. So I think it was a good decision. You get a Bertha, really good energy in the Bertha, kind of scrappy energy in the Bertha. Jerry's feeling good. That goes into a Good Lovin', which has never been one of my favorite songs, but really scrappy. Let's really put it out there. High energy Good Lovin'. I come around to it at the end. But then Jerry kind of goes against the energy a little bit because it must have been The Roses is next, which I like. It's a great song. I'm just not sure it was the direction this set was going at this point in time. So interesting choice. Then we get the US Blues, the encore next, just to keep the integrity of what happens in disc 3 intact. So disc 3, we get the rest of the second set from It Must Have Been the Roses on, minus the encore. Opens up with the Estimated Profit. Estimated Profit, this is why we get an estimated eyes. And I'm thinking to myself, this is exactly why this is the one that they released. Some pretty good stuff on here. I'm not sure either this estimated or this eyes would make like a top 10 list of either one of these songs, but they're both really, really good listens. The estimated is kind of everything you want out of an estimated. You get 4.5 minutes of like low simmer, deeply psych, but not really high energy aggressive, but very immersed in like just introspective psych energy. I've always thought of the Estimated Profit jams as deeply spiritual in like an inward looking way, and it just gets dark, and Jerry's not afraid to go like dark, disturbing places without going too dark, always kind of keeping it like, hey, we're here to help you, we're here to uplift you, but like we want to be real. I love this Estimated Profit. We kind of get what almost seems like we're going to reach some sort of peak, some high energy thing towards the end of the jam, but then it kind of just tails off. And everybody starts playing a little bit quieter, like they're just going to fade off, like they're going to ride off into the sunset on the beach. This is a very sunset beach song. And then it kind of just dissipates. And then Eyes of the World slowly starts to rise up out of this and like coalesce around like the ashes of Estimated in what is a unique. It is not this jumping a dun 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 dun. We're not jumping into that upbeat thing. We're like slowly squirming and weaseling our way into an Eyes of the World. And once we firmly establish that we're an Eyes of the World, Jerry just kind of, he's soloing, but he's not doing your magnificent, proud Eyes of the World, spiritual type solo. It has this squirrely. Sinister isn't really the word I'm looking for, because there's dark undertones, but not necessarily evil undertones. But it takes on this really low key, low bubbling jam that goes on for about 4.5 minutes, for about a third of the song. Absolutely fantastic. Somewhat unique to like intros into Eyes of the World. Get the first verse, and then the jams in between the verses. Jerry's going left when usually he goes right. He's making these weird turns. He's jagged. He's pointed. He's still got that like sort of Eyes of the World, just kind of free gallop that this song has. But he's kind of pushing into darker corners through these solos in pretty exciting ways. Pretty awesome. Just a really absolutely solid Estimated Eyes. By far the best thing we've had in this show. The solos are great. Jerry's kind of going different places. Phil, of course, sounds fantastic. The entire band sounds amazing. But it's not the highlight of the show. We then get a 25-minute Rhythm Devils. A 20, actually close to 26-minute Rhythm Devils. Not a drum space. 26 minutes of drums. They pretty much play, I think, every percussion instrument on stage, and are probably playing things that aren't percussion instruments. If you like drums, it's interesting. It's varying. They're doing a lot of things throughout it, but it's 26 minutes. It's a lot. And then it just ends, and they blow a whistle. They do the drum roll, and we're off into a trucking. It's just kind of odd how they're like, I think earlier, like 6 shows earlier, was the first ever like definitive drums into space. No space happens here. It's just 25 minutes of drums. Trucking is good. Really nice peak at the end. That drops off into a... Bob does mess up the first verse. The trucking peak goes off into a pretty high energy jam for a while. Could have gone longer. It's got some good intensity to it. They just kind of pull the plug on it a little too easy, then kind of simmer down into the WHARF Rat. And the WHARF Rat, that solo in the middle of WHARF Rat takes this song to just next level. It is an amazing solo. The entire band is locked in behind Jerry. It reaches this peak that is just absolutely climactic. It is, I think, all the energy from the show is going into this middle solo. And then the solo peaks, and we get to do that last verse of the song, which is just such an awesome last verse. I don't know. It just sounds like, all right, now we're moving on with life type thing. And then we get that nice closing solo, kind of dissonant, has a lot of energy, good energy in it. Nowhere near as intense as that middle solo, but it shouldn't be, because we've already peaked. We've already had like the revelatory moment in the middle of the song. And then we get that last verse and this really nice closing solo into and around. That's your typical high energy 78 around and around. Disc 3 is where the highlights are. The Estimated Eyes, while maybe not top 10 for either, both are offering things that are a little bit different from other Estimated Eyes. The energy in Estimated is what it should be. The Eyes kind of feels like it's going different places. 25 minutes of drums, but then that WHARF Rat, that middle solo in WHARF Rat. I've said this before on other releases. One of the things that I really, really like about doing this, like listening to all the Dave picks and Dick's picks, is certain songs I'm realizing are just much better than I gave them credit for. Tennessee Jet is one of them, never disappoints. And WHARF Rat has risen to the top of my favorite, apart from like a Morning Dew. But Morning Dew is hard to live up to because that closing solo never reaches Barton Hall levels. But the WHARF Rat, I'm always a fan of WHARF Rat. They've worked every time. But yeah, it's a pretty good show. So the question is, because I'm going to ask that question, where would I rank it if I had to rank it among all other 78 shows that I've done already? Which only includes Dave's picks and Dick's picks. And so, where would I rank it? I would rank it right there. I have it at the bottom so far. To be fair, a lot of these 78s rank at the bottom of their respective list, both the Dave's list and the Dick's picks list, just because 78's not one of my favorite years. And I do think there was a lull, and I think some of these choices have been interesting. But almost all of them rank higher because a couple of them are like one of them is 2 shows, one of them has some good bonus tracks. Maybe the selection is better, like there's another one, or a St. Stephen, or there's something that makes them just stand out a little more. There's not really much difference between most of these. I mean, I think number one is clearly number one. And then there's not much difference when you drop down below that. But yeah, not bad stuff. But yeah, I have it at the bottom. I mean, I think the Estimated Eyes is interesting, not bad. The WHARF Rat, really, really good. The Loser, good. But other than that, it's like a standard show. And in their releases, there's a lot of standard shows. I don't know. I kind of feel bad, but that's right now where I would put this. But that's all I got. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, share, comment. If you listen to this show, let me know your thoughts on it. Appreciate all that. And it is a good listen. It is a good listen. If anything, listen to disc 3. Disc 3. That's not 3. That's 3. Listen to disc 3 if you get the chance. It's a good run, and you get a 26-minute drums. All right. Peace. Talk to you later.